Hey, welcome to another episode of the Big Time Strength Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Berg, and we have a special Veterans Day podcast today. I thought my experience is I am a combat veteran, and I thought we need to find some coaches out there who are veterans for Veterans Day. So to all you veteran coaches out there, using the experience that you have, happy Veterans Day. I know you're making such a difference from the experiences you have. So I wanted to share that from the woman's perspective today. So I have a special guest. Her name is Taylor Galadyk, and she is the owner and head coach of Valkyrie Performance. So I'm very excited to have her. She's a wife, mother, athlete, and a Marine veteran who specializes in helping women, first responders, and military service members. So we were talking before, and she's going to have some great insight for you, and I'm just so excited. But first, before we get to Taylor, we always got to give you a little bit from our great sponsors. So if you have not listened yet from the last podcast to our first sponsor at TeamBuildr, we did a great interview with Hewitt, and he's just been one of our best sponsors. So make sure to give that a listen. TeamBuildr is the leading software for high school and colleges. They provide coaches the ability to write programs online, generate over 13 reports, and even train athletes remotely for side income. So make sure to reach out to them. Our next sponsor is PowerLift. PowerLift is the leading manufacturer and distributor of heavy-duty strength training equipment for collegiate and high school athletic performance centers around the world. PowerLift brings over 20 years of experience to the strength and conditioning world. All products are manufactured in their state-of-the-art manufacturing facility in Jefferson, Iowa. So they are proud to support all coaches making it big time where they are at. Make sure if you are looking for any equipment to reach out to PowerLift. We also got to talk again about the Big Time Strength and Football Clinic. So as of right now, this is Saturday, March 28th, and it is in person. It's presented to you by Elite Sports, PowerLift, TeamBuildr, and the Eastern Iowa FCA. 21 premier college and high school presenters, 10 strength coaches, 11 football coaches, 8 hours of presentation with 3 rooms to choose from. Clinic t-shirt, breakfast and lunch provided, and it is hands down one of the best clinics in Iowa. So they have some great stuff going on there. Make sure to check out our website, and this will be at Mount Vernon High School in Mount Vernon, Iowa. So to guarantee that you get your t-shirt, make sure you register by March 14th. So thank you again to our great sponsors and to the football clinic. But we're ready. Let's get on to our show. So welcome, Taylor.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Yes,
I
I'm
just
so
want
excited.
to say to the listeners, I'm just listening to you, Amanda, and we just met virtually for the
Yes.
first time ever a few moments ago. But I'm in awe of you and your leadership. I can just tell in the past few moments of getting to know you briefly, your veteran backstory and what you're doing, even just hearing about your Monday, your leadership stuff with your kids and being in the weight room this morning. I'm really in awe of what you're doing, and it's awesome. So thank you for taking the time to seek me out to be part of the great work that you are doing. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, and I like it that you said, we haven't met. I actually just kind of knew I want to do something for Veterans Day, and thank goodness for Google. I actually typed in the words female strength and conditioning coach, military veteran. When you type in those words, you are the first person that comes up, so you should be proud of that.
That's amazing.
Yes.
That's exciting.
Yeah, let me talk a little bit about your backstory, and just the wonderful credentials and how much what you are doing mimics what we are doing as strength and conditioning coaches at the college and high school level. But you have your Bachelor of Science from Louisville, right? I said it right?
Yes, Louisville.
Yes. Marine Corps officer, professional CrossFit athlete, your master's in leadership from Georgetown, and multiple military certifications, but I love this. Athletically, you were a cheerleader for Louisville.
Yeah, I was.
Yes, three-time national team, four times CrossFit um, regionals and athlete. And I'm going to ask you about this, a barbell mover for the National Professional Grid League. What is that one?
Yes. So the National Professional Grid League was around in maybe 2015 to 2017, and they had different regions and different teams. So I was actually stationed in Camp Pendleton, and I was on the Los Angeles, the LA Reign, and it was part of, yeah, the Grid League. And so we had these different teams, and it was kind of based off of CrossFit, but you had a team of men and women, and you were a specializer, or you were kind of like the in-between person. And so we had gymnasts that specialized in gymnastics movement, and then we had barbell movers who were the strong people who just threw around weights, deadlifted a lot of stuff, and that was me. I lifted all the weights and got paid to do it really
Oh my,
fast.
oh my gosh, that sounds like a wonderful job.
It was very fun.
Oh, fun. So yes, well, if anyone's into that, I'm going to tell them to reach out to you because that's really
Yes.
neat. And I love your mission statement. I feel like it just mimics exactly what I'm trying to do with this podcast. But it is your dream to see women supporting women, consistently rising above the standards, leading from the front in their masculine and feminine nature while taking a seat at the table without apologizing for it. That is,
I I wrote that. That sounds good, doesn't it?
yes. So talk to us. Talk to us about Valkyrie Performance and what you got going on there.
Yes. Okay. So I started the business in 2016 while I was actually still on active duty. I put together a blog post that said, hey, I'm going to take a shot in the dark, start training some women that are wanting to prepare for first responder positions. I had experienced my own challenges, and I thought I reached out for a lot of help, and I was just really lucky to have really great mentors and really great strength and conditioning coaches. But I also realized that not every woman had the same opportunities as I did, and I wanted to create more opportunities for them to learn and grow and to be better leaders. So I put it out there. I said I'm going to accept 10 women to accept your applications and work with you guys for free. And I remember thinking I'll be lucky if I get 10 applications, and I had over 50 women apply.
Wow.
And I selected my 10 favorite. One was like a Black Hawk pilot in the Army, one was a sheriff, one was training to be a firefighter, some were already in the military and, in the Marine Corps. And so it was just really fun, and I just took it from there, and I started evolving it over, the past 4 years, and brought on some contractors to help me do that, and it's kind of evolved along the way. So yeah, it's just been amazing. I've worked with hundreds of women. I've gotten to speak at different universities and ROTC units and Marine Corps. I got to work with the Silent Drill Platoon, which they are an elite unit.
Wow.
If you know about the Silent Drill Platoon, got to work with them on overcoming performance anxiety. I've just had some really unique opportunities to work with really unique people.
Wonderful. Oh, I bet you met so many personalities.
Yes.
Awesome. So our audience here is primarily a lot of strength and conditioning coaches, and we usually specialize in preparing our teams to be their best to compete, preparing individual athletes to compete, and then essentially moving them beyond and usually into the college setting. But that's not necessarily the place for everyone. So I want to talk today what is some great training protocols that you're using if students are moving on into the military?
Yeah, well, I would say so. I started CrossFit when I was 19 years old, and I grew up throughout high school. I had never really properly been introduced to strength and conditioning or weight training. I never even ran track, which is my biggest regret because I think I would have been a really fast sprinter, and I was a
Mhm.
very explosive athlete. But so, anyways, I didn't have a lot of exposure to the weight room, to the barbell, to any of that. So when I was 19, I found CrossFit, and at that time I couldn't even do one pull-up. So that was a good starting point, and I just felt really challenged. I thought, oh wow, I'm seeing other people in this room do something that I can't physically do, and I want to learn how to do that. So the exposure in itself was really a big eye opener for me, because even being a gym, doing gymnastics or doing cheerleading, there wasn't a weight room attached to that.
Yeah.
We conditioned in other ways. So yeah, so for me, exposure was a big thing, and then I started the conjugate program with Shane and Laura Phelps Sweat, who were based out of Cincinnati, Ohio, and I met them when I was super young. And then fast forward to a few years later, as I was in college and preparing to become an officer in the Marine Corps, I started working with them, and they worked a lot with me on my mindset, I would say primarily, and then also with my efficiency and my technique and my effort and my overall performance as an athlete. And so I had a good bit of time. I had a year in Cincinnati to just train before I left for the military, and I did all conjugate style training with tons of variations of things that we thought we might see at the basic school or at training. So we did a lot of sled dragging, which was to prepare me for hiking or moving heavy loads for longer durations at lower speeds. So we would do tons of sled variations, throw on some ankle weights, carry a med ball with the sled,
Yeah.
heavy man or strong man. We do some strongman training to, tax the central nervous system and then to help with my recovery. So we did some of that. We would do tons of grip work, tons of rope climbing variations or pull-up variations, weighted pull-ups, banded pull-ups, pull-ups with chains, all kinds of variations. So essentially, he was preparing me for anything that could come, and he just made me very mentally tough. But also at the same time, when I was using the conjugate method, it was very effective and efficient in the sense that I was getting stronger progressionally, and I was also kind of preventing injury and maintaining or protecting the longevity of my lifespan as an athlete, because the conjugate method incorporates the way that the conjugate method is set up. We do 80% of our strength training comes from accessory lifts and movements, and we always added in high repetition variation movements with bands or reverse hypers or things that would carry lots of blood flow to the areas that we worked to maintain health in that area. So there were a lot of very specific and intentional things that Shane knew he was doing, or Laura knew they were doing when they were coaching and training me, that I didn't understand at the time, and then later saw that it was paying off when I got to the basic school and I was outperforming a lot of my male peers in the physical component.
Okay. Wow. So it sounds intricate.
Yes.
What would you think, maybe let's say 3 exercises that we could say for a coach maybe to start adding into their routine?
3 exercises that they're not already doing, or that I could assume they're not doing, because the first thing I would say is like deadlift,
Yeah.
squat,
Yeah.
bench.
Yep.
Right, like
Well, that's good.
the main 3 lifts, definitely be doing those. But if I had to choose 3 for your athletes who are training for the military, rope climbing is a skill that takes strength and technique, and it's a lot of technique. So I would say definitely rope climbing variations
Okay.
is one that I would add onto that list. Sled drags is one that I would add to that list. And I would say anything banded. Bands are so cheap, and bands can go with you anywhere, and you can use them for several things. So it's hard for me to say one specific movement, but just anything with bands.
Okay. I saw for your at-home workouts you're using a lot of bands too, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love it. We've been, the last few years, I've been really putting a lot of research into the new Army Combat Fitness Test. Are you
Yes.
familiar with that at all?
I would have to look up the details right now, but I know that they're definitely changing. They're adding in some new lifting components, med ball toss,
Yep.
stuff like that, right?
Yes, and it still mimics, military, so many military skills, but so many things that coaches already have in their weight room. So, and a lot
Yeah.
of sled drags, that's really popular with a lot of strength and conditioning now. So I'm really impressed that, the military is moving over to that form of training. So I think we're going to see a lot of mix between the tactical and the athletic development world over the next.
Absolutely.
Definitely. So.
That's the hope. And I guess it would go without saying, some listeners might question why I didn't mention running, but I think that the sled dragging also carries over to the running. The band work also carries over to speed endurance, muscular endurance. So running and endurance in general, cardiovascular health is a good component, because you have to go in the Marine Corps. It's the longest. It's a 3-mile run for time. So it is important that although you need to be strong and able to move your own body weight and carry other people or move heavy loads over a long period of time, for most military branches you're going to be doing that running component. So just keeping that cardiovascular endurance up is important as well.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, as we were kind of getting to know each other in our work, you shared with me your capstone, and I was, first off, so impressed, just the information. And you talked as far as, I'll let you go in deeper, but I couldn't just help thinking, I was like, oh my gosh, this is mimicking the strength and conditioning world, and particularly female coaches in the strength and conditioning world. And I'd even go down and say, female athletes in the strength and conditioning world. So talk a little bit about your capstone, and, we'll kind of relate between the military and strength and conditioning.
Absolutely. Let me give just a brief backstory, and I know that we'll talk about this when we get to the biggest challenge I've faced, but for our listeners, so I served as a logistics officer in the Marine Corps for 4 years. And during that time, in the beginning of my training, they were taking volunteers to go through the infantry officer course, which was predominantly male at the time. So they were taking volunteers of women who wanted to go through for research purposes. So I decided to go through that, and I was unsuccessful. And it was a huge defining moment in my life and a huge catalyst for the work that I'm doing now. But so for that backstory, that's kind of what prompted me into digging deeper with what are these specific challenges that other women leaders are facing. And not only just for the women, but I wanted to know more about the male perspective. I wanted to know what are the concerns that they have with women integrating into those male-dominated environments, male-dominated teams. And I also wanted to know what were the challenges that they were facing as leaders, whether it was simply being able to connect with somebody of the opposite sex, or to have hard conversations, or to simply run an effective small team that has, you're used to it being all men, you can kind of act differently. Now there's a woman as part of it. What does that mean to you? What does that do for you? So I wanted to hear from both sides. I wanted to hear from men and women. And so the method that I went about for this, so I was at Georgetown a couple months ago, whatever, 2019.
Yep.
And so we all had to pick a capstone project to do at the end. And so I chose to do it on this topic, on what are the challenges that men and women face. Okay. And so the method I went about through doing so was first through discussion groups and focus groups. I targeted infantry male leaders, women Marines. It was predominantly Marines because that was what I had access to in person. But so I had some focus groups with those people to get some conversations going. Then I distributed a survey via Qualtrics to 180 participants, and it was broken down into general military questions, current physical fitness capabilities, and the age of the first time of execution. I wanted to know a little bit about their childhood, their physical preparation before joining the service, and then I had certain parts that were broken down for men and women to answer specifically. And this was all branches of the military that completed this. All MOSs, so combat MOSs, logistical MOSs, engineers, every MOS was completing this survey.
So jobs,
and,
right?
Yes, jobs. Yes, military occupational specialties, their jobs. Yep. So we had people from all different jobs within the military completing this survey. So sent out the survey and then got the results, and then came up with the significant findings that we found from that to kind of challenge my assumptions or find the results, and then ultimately to prompt change within leaders who are yearning for answers. I see a challenge, but I don't know how to fix it. What do I do?
Yes.
Or I know my challenges, but I don't know the opposite gender's challenges, so how can I get a better understanding? So, going through that, the significant findings showed, I'm just going to pull up my physical fitness comparison chart by gender. And the biggest difference that I saw here, so I asked people about, can you run 3 miles without stopping? Can you do 8 pull-ups? Can you perform a rope climb? And the differences weren't that large there, but the difference was when women started doing pull-ups versus men, there was a 4-year difference. So men reported to starting pull-ups around 13 years old or younger, and women reported 17 years or older. So I saw a significant gap there. And then there was a huge gap between every weightlifting question that I answered. Men, on average, were 14 years or younger, and women were 18 years or older when they started deadlifting, benching, or squatting.
Wow.
So just generally seeing that the findings there were that women were exposed to this, but not until, on average, 4 years later in life than men. So that was pretty significant, because even myself, I reported 19 years old. Maybe I saw it around, or I was too timid to ask or to try to go lift a barbell, but I bet if I would have lifted a barbell at 16 years old, I still would have been pretty strong, right? So yes. It's just, I think that there it lies in encouraging women to start tapping into strength and conditioning at earlier ages or earlier on before their adult life, when they may decide they want to go into military. Or so maybe you have some athletes that you're working with now that have a seed in their head of this military idea, but they might not be asking questions because they think it's impossible, or they haven't seen another woman do it. So you as a coach, that's a huge opportunity for you to just see the potential and to just encourage women to start lifting weights and to getting into those things at the same age as men.
Yes, I think, that's amazing research. I think the same thing is happening in strength and conditioning, right? It's attractive to males at a younger age, and it takes women or girls sometimes to have the confidence, right? To be like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. So our job as coaches is find a way to get them in there and make them comfortable. And I think about female development too, and how usually they develop sooner than males. And the earlier we can get them in there, my goodness.
True.
Awesome.
So what's also interesting, I have two more significant findings to brief for the listeners. So the men's number one concern, I wanted to know what is the men's number one concern for women being integrated into combat-related military occupational specialties. And the reported number one concern was the lowering of physical standards. Okay. So their fear is that if women come on, that we have these job-related physical tests, that they may start changing those tests based on the presence of women. But this is just a fear, not the truth. When asked, so I broke down, it's kind of hard to explain what the survey looks like if you're not looking at it, but I broke it down into leadership components of, let's say if you're a leader, there's 3 primary components that we're evaluating, or that your followers, your subordinates, are evaluating the leader on, which would be the physical component, the mental component, and the emotional component. And so the physical component is self-explanatory. The mental component is talking about competency, decisiveness, resiliency, optimism, and impulse control. And the emotional component is self-awareness, self-regard, so respect of oneself or others, assertiveness and communication and ideas, empathy, and independence. So those are the 3 components: physical, mental, and emotional. Okay. When I asked the survey participants to rate in order of most important to least important, the 3 components, to rate them, it was across the board. So men overall, it was mental component as the primary, emotional component as the secondary, and the least important was the physical component. So this is significant because it's saying that although physical fitness is very important in our jobs and in leadership, It's not the most important thing.
Mhm.
So I think that that's huge because what it says to women is that you need to work on this, you need to get strong, but it's not the only thing you need to be good at. You need to be good at, you need to understand your job, you need to be decisive, you need to be resilient, you need to have self-awareness, all of these other things. And so what I think that that says to coaches and what that tells to you guys who are in the weight room training these athletes is you have so much room for impact. Yes, you want their numbers to go up on their lifts. Yes, you want them to get faster. But ultimately, as coaches, we care about the long-term impact. We care about the character, we care about their hearts and their minds, we care about the person that we're developing and growing. And so I think that it's just important to take a step back and notice that what you guys are doing as lifting and strength and conditioning coaches is so much more important than just the physical component or the physical aspect of training. You know, the most important asset that I think an athlete has is what lies in between their ears, and it's their head and their heart.
Yes.
So how they lead and how they perform and how they show up as a team player, yes, they're going to need to be fast and strong, but they're also going to need to be able to do all of those other things that are more important in the leadership. And that's a whole other conversation we could come back to. You know, I don't think that the lowering of the physical standards is happening or going to happen based on what I saw and probably what you saw in the military, because if women are showing up to perform those jobs, they're meeting the standards or succeeding those standards. So I'm not fearful that our military is going to lower the standards. I think that that is just a superficial or an easy fear for men to say, but I think that it goes deeper. And as coaches, I think that you need to go deeper too with critically thinking for yourselves and maybe recognizing whether there's an unconscious or conscious bias when it comes to training women or female athletes, or even working with other female strength and conditioning coaches.
Yes.
So.
Oh my gosh, so many great things, like, and just the crossover. I think when you're not talking to a coach that's necessarily in your exact world, it makes you reflect a little bit more as far as like, wow, I need to do that. You know, this is what's happening in the military. I need to do that as a strength coach. So
Right. It's awesome that it all aligns though. I think that there's so much in simplicity. And when you strip it all down, like you're saying, we're doing very similar things. There's just beauty in that simplicity of it. At the end of the day, what are you doing? You're making people better.
yes, I love it. And for coaches, our coaches a lot of times seeing the research, if you're okay with it, I'd love to put a link to that
Absolutely,
on
sure.
our show notes, because just how concise you were with it and just all the information that you showed through your capstone is wonderful. So I love it. And I'm guessing that there was probably a reason for this. So I wanted to talk a little bit about maybe a hurdle, or if it was what led to your research on this, but what's the toughest hurdle you have overcome either in the military or anywhere?
Yeah. So I would generally say, it's funny, for the longest time, my biggest hurdle was failing IOC. But it's been so long, that was in 2013, and now here we are 7 years later. It was such a stepping stone. It was so monumental that I allowed the failure to lead to growth and change and to make me stronger. So it's no longer the biggest hurdle. I would say the biggest hurdle for me at this season in my life is the transition from highly competitive, overachiever, very performing environment in the military to being a civilian and to being a mother. It's just going from being super competitive to learning to be more compassionate and to slow down a bit. So I've had to lose the all or nothing mentality. I've had to find balance in my day-to-day life. I've had to figure out what my visions and goals and dreams now are, that I'm no longer tied to an elite organization. Or maybe I want my organization to do great things, but taking your organization to the elite level requires great efforts and energy that I might not be willing to give at this season in my life because I want to give more to my family. So the biggest hurdle for me has been this transition from active duty to civilian.
And then with the family. And I will tell you, I don't know if it gets easier. You know, a little bit over, 14 years out, and that, adding the family to it, and it's always kind of in the back there. But for so many years, that's what defined us, right?
Right.
What defines us is the job we do and what we compete at. So,
Absolutely. And there's
you're gonna,
such a breadth. I classify myself as a recovering perfectionist because especially in the Marine Corps, the standards are so high, and they're so high for a reason. There's a reason that the discipline is the way that it is, that the organization, sets those standards. But it serves you in that time, and it doesn't mean that it always serves you. So, but I will say that it's a testimony to the fact that it might not get easier, but you're doing hard work and you're doing great work. And I see that. So nothing worth having really ever comes easy. It's just that hard starts to look different, and it looks different in every season. So I think it's great that you're still doing what you're passionate about 14 years after your transition, even saying, I don't know if it gets easier, but you're here fighting for it and doing this podcast and inspiring other leaders. So that inspires me.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Oh, I love it. So let's, talking about leadership, let's talk about kind of your vision moving ahead the next, let's say 5 years out. It can be any amount, but where do you see, I'll even ask leadership as far as women, what is your hope?
Yeah. Well, regardless of anyone's political standpoint, I'd say we're all in a monumental time. We'll see what goes forward with what women are doing and shattering all types of glass ceilings. But what that means for me and how I see the next 5 years of my life, I'm actually making the tough decision to close the doors on Valkyrie Performance. And so if anybody wants any free strength and conditioning programming, I have tons of PDFs. I have everything that I've built over the past 4 years. If you want it, you can have it. I'm always here as a resource or a reference, but I'm shutting the doors on the strength and conditioning component for now in order to simplify what I'm doing and to use my gifts and talents to most efficiently and effectively serve those that I can. So what that looks like for me over the next 5 years is simplifying, doing less, changing over from strength and conditioning to primarily life coaching. I want to continue to work with elite leaders and help them have a balanced and happy life, be aligned, be free. I want them to thrive in their professional environments and in their personal lives. And I see such a need, especially as women are climbing the ladder and we are shattering the glass ceiling. It's very easy to create this illusion that you can have it all and do it all, and it comes at no cost. And the reality is, it comes at a cost. Nothing is free. Nothing worth having is free. And I want women and men, everything I do can apply to my husband or to men. I work with all people, but just specifically women have my heart. But what it means for women is again, the opportunity to work on being competitive when the time is right, but being compassionate when the time is right, and finding times of when do I need to be structured and when do I need to be very disciplined versus when is there a time to loosen my grip, to let go, let my hair down, or to lean into my feminine energy, which is so often suppressed when we're working in male-dominated environments. So I see that I'll just trust God's will, and however he's going to let that play out for me over the next 5 years is where I'll be headed. I host a monthly coffee and connection where I just get up to 15 women together and we talk about anything under the sun and encourage each other and support each other. I see myself possibly hosting more group virtual training sessions with women and possible events, seminars, experiences. I don't know. We'll just see where it all takes me.
Oh, wonderful. I mean, in the strength and conditioning world, a lot of people know about, Brett Bartholomew and Jeremy Boone come to mind, and both strength and conditioning coaches who have taken this route and even gotten laser focused with things related to leadership and coaching. And I wish the best for you, because I think when you get to focus on that and follow that, it's going to take you so many places you never thought. So
thank you.
I'm so excited about that. So let's kind of move on as far as and finish up with some practical advice.
Sure.
Right now, what would you say advice for? I'm going to ask for both parts. Female and male leaders leading I'm even going a little farther, leading our youth right now and our future. What would you say to them?
I want to summarize that into one major topic, which is creating training environments that promote psychological safety. And what that means, you can look up the definition. I don't have it right in front of me, but essentially it's where any individual in the team, on the team, or in the weight room can ask a question without the fear of embarrassment. They can make a mistake without the fear of negative repercussions or embarrassment. Essentially, you're prompting a very safe environment for people to learn and grow and not be fearful of any negative incentives.
Okay.
So I think that starts with self-awareness of unconscious or conscious bias. And I would like to speak both to both men and women. What I saw a lot of times in the military with women is that we tend to be harder on one another because we have this mentality like women represent all women, or maybe you internalize it that way, that my actions represent not only myself, but they represent women as a whole in this profession. And so what I'd say to that is to go deeper with that and to learn how to not project those either insecurities or those messages that maybe you've received, but that all of this comes with great in-depth self-reflection and self-awareness for both genders, male and female. So whether you're a male, don't go easier on the girls just because they're girls. And if you're a woman coach, don't go harder on the girls just because they're girls and you think it's the right thing because you're trying to make them better and stronger and you wish the best for them. That might not be the approach. I would hope most coaches, or if you're a great coach, you know that you need to adapt at different times based on the athlete's needs. And I don't think many coaches, maybe some coaches treat all athletes the same, but what I'm saying is don't.
Okay.
Yeah, do and don't. Do and don't. Don't treat them the same, or treat them the same based on gender. Everybody should be treated equal in that nature. But just don't be tougher or harder or easier or softer just because of their gender. So work on that kind of conscious bias in order to prompt psychological safety in the weight room, because it'll carry over into their confidence in competitive environments and in professional environments.
Awesome. When they get older. I want to move a little bit, and maybe I'm being a little bit selfish here, but moving a little bit even more as we get older. I'm seeing, my passion is like, we got to be 50%. We have 50% female athletes, but yet I'm still seeing podcasts, speaking events where it is just dominating primarily male. And I don't know if you saw that, in the military. And so I'm so worried that our female future coaches aren't going to get to see female speaking. Do you think that that's an important part of it?
I think it's important. It's as important to the strength and conditioning community as it is to the leader of that community. So if the leader of that community, if it's important to them, they're going to make it a priority. And so therefore there's an obstacle for people at the lower level who are maybe having this desire and they're wanting to see more female speakers or female engagement. And I would say just keep pushing it from the bottom up to the top. Whoever's ahead of you, keep pushing that idea, keep pushing that need out there, because it could simply be a lack of understanding or a lack of knowing that there even is a need, or that there's a strong desire. So, closed mouths don't get fed. So keep doing what you're doing and keep asking for women. And I think that it is important for women to see other women, not just any woman, but strong, patient, strong, good leaders and role models. So
yes.
I think that it is important, but it's not important to just fill those roles just with any woman. And so I think that there's a fine balance of how that needs to play out when you're pushing for a number or a percentage. Just be careful that you're not taking shortcuts in other ways.
That's that you make a very good point about that part. And I think just if we get to see these great women, I think we are going to be able to eventually build each other up, right?
Right, and I would also say to that don't underestimate the power of one woman speaker, you know, like getting, if it's not where you want it to be, maybe you want to have more in the coming years, but don't underestimate the power of that. You know, that's very, very powerful. The exposure of another woman is very powerful and can completely alter the course of anybody's life. But I remember I met my first female Marine at 19 years old, and just from meeting her one time, my grandfather was a Marine for 33 years. My dad was a Marine for 25 years. And the thought had crossed my mind, but I didn't ever dare utter it because, you know, my dad at first was very surprised that I wanted to go that route. But I didn't have the confidence or the courage, or even, really, it didn't even spark within me until I met a female Marine at 19 years old, and it changed my whole path.
Wow, I love it. Wow. So yes, if you are in charge of clinics and speaking, listen, that's the power of one voice can make a difference for so many. So I love it. Well,
yeah, well, you guys can email me. I mean, I will definitely come out and speak to some young men and women in the high school world about leadership or whatnot, but for sure.
Wonderful. I love it. Well, our big question on this podcast, we are the Big Time Strength Podcast, and how are you making it big time where you are at right now?
It's funny because my answer to that seems so not big time, but how am I making it big time in my world is I'm focusing actually just on my home and on my family first and foremost. And I'm actually every day trying to do less and less external things, and to just simplify and increase the quality of my time with my family. And so I'm just starting in my home, starting in my marriage, starting with my son. And first and foremost, I'm starting with myself. How am I making it big? I never stop leading myself. I never stop taking the time to get still, get quiet, reflect, journal almost every day. I'm always taking in some kind of mental stimulus, whether it's for 5 minutes or 20 minutes a day. But that's how I continue to march on forward, is to prioritize time with myself and time with my family.
Wonderful. You gotta live well to lead well, right?
Exactly.
I love it. Well, good. Well, you ready for some fast fives so we get to learn just a little bit more about you? Somebody you idolize.
Idolized my grandfather.
You did? Okay.
Yes.
Yes. How about 15 minutes to train for you? What are you doing?
Depends on the day. Could be a slow walk to the beach, could be a surf session or some yoga. But if I only have 15 minutes and Hawk's taking a nap, Hawk is my son. He's so almost cool. A year and a half.
Oh my gosh, that's a cool
It would probably be 15-minute, either an EMOM or an AMRAP. An EMOM is every minute on the minute. An AMRAP is as many rounds as possible in 15 minutes. But I would do something like that with some running and some body weight. And I have a pull-up bar in my garage, so I'd probably do some running, some burpees or push-ups, and some pull-ups.
All right. Tactical training.
Yes.
Love it. How about your favorite workout snack?
Favorite workout snack?
Yeah, or like maybe pre-workout, after workout.
This is funny. I don't do like pre-workout or pre-workout snacks now, but the thing that came to mind when I was training really intensely was Tang. Tang and coconut water.
Really?
Yes. I would train for hours on end, 2 times a day, 4 hours, 2 to 4 hours a session, just insane amounts of training. And so nutrition was a huge thing, but I remember having, all the electrolytes and all the sugar of coconut water and Tang.
I love it. Well, coconut water by itself is just not my jam. So I can say, I bet it's better adding a little Tang to it.
It tastes like a creamsicle.
Yeah. Oh, love it. Well, and then talk to us about a coach that you know in your world who is just making it big time where they're at.
This was hard to choose, but my heart immediately went to Laura Phelps Sweat. She is based out of Conjugate and the Sweat Shop in Cincinnati. And Shane Sweat was there at the time as well, so they kind of coached me together. But when I think about women and connecting with you and all of that. Laura Phelps Sweat is the queen of powerlifting, taught me everything I know about being a humble, gracious athlete. She was a woman who supported me as a woman, and I don't think that I would be where I am if it weren't for her influence and what she continues to do in the strength and conditioning world. She's amazing.
Wow.
Inside and out.
Laura Phelps Sweat out of,
yes.
Love it. And a little special one for our Fast Five, Veterans Day style. How does a veteran, and your husband's active duty, how do you celebrate Veterans Day?
Well, this Veterans Day, we rented an RV in Ocean Beach, San Diego, and we are going to go out and camp for a few days and surf and eat some good food and celebrate all the freedoms that we have in America.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it that you're celebrating it too.
What are you going to do?
I actually interviewed my grandfather this summer, who is a Korean War vet and has never talked about it very often. And that's the day I'm going to share his story with the world. Yes. So
I hope I get to hear it.
Yes, we did a manuscript, about it, and just ask a veteran. I can't say that enough. Ask a veteran about their story. They're really their story, because the things that we learned from this really make my grandpa who he is. And we didn't really realize the roots of it. So yes, that's it.
Powerful. I can't wait to hear it.
Yes. Well, this has been wonderful. I'm sure we're going to have listeners who did not know you were in our world. Talk to how we can contact you and reach you.
Yes. Well, I still do have ValkyriePerformance.com. That's the website. My Facebook and Instagram are listed on that page, but our Instagram is Valkyrie_performance. And my Instagram account is just my first and last name, Taylor Galadyk. And Instagram, social media is the best way. On our website, there's a contact form. My email is also listed there. My personal email is first name dot last name, so taylor.galadyk at gmail.com. And like I mentioned before, I really am open to your questions. I'm open to, if you guys want resources or training, email me and I'll send you everything I have. I'll give you what I've got. I would love to help you. I love what you guys are doing. And if you have more follow-on questions, I would just love to help you guys in any way. I think this is awesome.
Wonderful. Yes, strength coaches, please take advantage of that. Okay, tactical training is something I know I didn't really have a ton of research on, so wonderful. Well, this has been, I appreciate you. This has been wonderful. I know our audience is going to love this, so thank you so much, Taylor.
Awesome. Thank you, Amanda. Happy Veterans Day to you and to all the other veterans.
Yes, thank you. This has been another episode of the Big Time Strength Podcast. So as always, we'd love to hear what you're thinking about this. And I'm going to make a special invitation to the woman out there. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know if there's anything else that you would love to hear or see from this podcast. So have a great week and have a wonderful Veterans Day.